Well, hello there, everybody. It's Grampa Scott, and it's a beautiful day, as they say, in the neighborhood. But today is special because we've got another story to read, and it'll take us on a fantastic adventure, I'm sure. Today's story is called "There Are Rocks in My Socks," said the ox to the fox. Oh no, it's a rhyming one. Well, let's go into it, shall we? Okay, so there are rocks in my socks, said the ox to the fox. There are rocks in my socks, said the ox to the fox. Bumpy old, lumpy old, clumpy old rocks, pinchy and scrunchy whenever one walks. I feel very grumpy with rocks in my socks. Look at that! Rocks in his socks. I'd feel grumpy too, wouldn't you? See here, my sweet steer, said the fox to the ox. Why don't you stop grumping and take out the rocks? I must say I've noticed the longer one talks, the less time one has for taking out rocks. But sir, there's no way, said the ox to the fox, to get rid of these rocks that are inside of my socks. With my shoes underneath, my feet firmly on top, I see no way to remove the rock. What a troubled situation! Let me think, said the fox to the ox with a wink. There must be a way to get the rocks out of the socks. Eureka! I have it. Just do a flip-flop. Put your legs in the air so your feet aren't on top of the rocks, which will then slide right out of your socks. It's a good thing I'm clever, said the fox to the ox. Yes, indeed, you're clever, said the ox to the fox. I'll do a flip-flop so my feet are on top. Then the rocks will come tumbling right out of my socks. Do you think it'll work? There's a tack on my back, said the ox to the fox. A prickly old, tickly old, stickly old tack. I really don't need a particular tack. I found this was missing. I wish it back. Furthermore, those rocks haven't budged from my socks, said the ox to the fox. So he's got a tack in his back. Can you see that? And rocks still in his socks. Quite a predicament, this ox. Said to the fox to the ox, there's no need to sigh. I'll have it solved in a blink of an eye. Quick, flick your tail neath your back, and you will knock aside that prickly old tack. You're lucky I'm here, said the fox to the ox. Yes, you're a great help, said the ox to the fox. With a swish of my tail, I'll give that old tack a good whack, and I will knock it from under my back. Swish, whish, whoomp, thump. I don't know if this is going to work. There's a rail on my tail, said the ox to the fox. A naughty old, coddy old, roddy old rail. I'm sure if this rail were placed on a scale, the whole thing would weigh just as much as a whale. I venture to state that in time one would hate the very great weight of a rail on one's tail. Not to mention the tack that's still on my back, and all those rocks are still in my socks, said the ox to the fox. Oh, wow, this is getting complicated. There, don't despair, said the fox to the ox. For there, it's true, don't you see? I'm sure you'll agree. You've no more fear as long as you're me. Your troubles are over. I swear it is true. For what else could possibly happen to you? Buzz, zzz, flit, sit. Looks like a bee, said the ox to the fox. Thank you, my friend, for your faith that my troubles will come to an end. Perhaps you're right to make light of my plight, but it seems that the end is not yet quite in sight. For here I remain with rocks in my socks, tack in my back, and a rail on my tail. And if that's not enough, I believe a large bee has decided to stop and rest on my knee. That makes me uneasy, in fact somewhat queasy, for large bee is a thing with a very large sting. Look at the size of that bee. Whew! Said the fox to the ox, "Yes, it seems to me you'd be better off without a large bee. However, because I'm so clever, I instantly see a way to remove that large bee from your knee. Just be quick, kick your toes in the air towards your nose, which will shake your knee free of that unwelcome bee." "Of course," said the ox. "How stupid of me. It's remarkably easy to shake off a bee. Flick, kick, zap, whap." And where did the bee go? Said the ox to the fox, "You've observed, I suppose, that I still have to kick myself hard in the nose." Meanwhile, the large bee, not choosing to flee, has been startled instead into stinging my knee, which I confess is quite unpleasant for me. What's more, with these rocks still stuck in my socks, an attack in my back, and a rail in my tail, I don't believe it's fair to state my situation is less than great. Skippy, hippy, hop, shop. "My word," said the bird, "my eyes must be blurred. I've never seen anything quite so absurd. A big grown-up ox with his back on attack and a rail on his tail and a bee on his knee. Gives his nose a whack. Please don't go, Mr. Fox. As for you, Mr. Ox, would you care to relate to how he got in this state?" "It's a rather long story," said the ox to the bird. "It's hard to explain everything that occurred. I believe it began with my friend here, the fox, who's an expert in getting rocks out of one's socks." And into a lot of other trouble, I think, too. Said the bird to the ox, "I really must say, you're going about it in a very strange way. Why not simply roll over, lift your back off the tack? Then just slide your tail from out under the rail and straighten your knee, which is obviously set the bee free. Mumble, tumble, roll, bless my soul," said the ox. "Now take off your shoes, then take off your socks. Try wiggling your toes, then dump out those rocks. Next, put back each sock and put back each shoe, which is all, Mr. Ox, that you need to do." "It is true what I have heard," said the ox to the bird. "All I need to is get rid of these rocks, was to take off my shoes and empty my socks." "Of course," said the bird. "Of course." Wiggle, jiggle, bump, 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 thump, wump, lump. And look at all the rocks coming out of his socks. "I believe," said the ox, "it might be said that my friend the fox has rocks on his head." Oh my! Well, isn't that a strange story? A lot of rhymes about the ox and the fox and the special bird that came along to help them all out. Well, this might be the end of the story, but the adventure is just beginning, because now's the time to go outside and have some fun, because this ox and fox, they're all done.